Yes, sir.
We can hear you in Athens.
Do we have the third confirmation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So we got our three confirmations from all the sites. So first and foremost, I am very sorry that you just got the presentation and materials just this morning. That is completely my fault. So we will just go ahead and work through these problems together as opposed to having you guys answer them beforehand. But hopefully you had a chance to look at some of the material and hopefully this can promote some good discussion. And so, good afternoon. My name is Paul Hammond. I'm the PGY2 Pediatric Pharmacy resident here at the Children's Hospital of Georgia in conjunction with the University of Georgia College of Pharmacy. And today I'm going to be talking about pediatrics. And so some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about is maybe a little bit basic, and it's probably something that seems very basic and very general to you guys. However, it's extremely important in our patients. And so we're seeing kids who are, just weeks old, and incremental doses can mean so much of a difference in regards to the dosing that they're receiving. So the majority of the doses that we do give are in milligram per kilogram doses. So even just the smallest increments of like 0.1 milliliters can make all the difference. So we'll go over some of those aspects. We'll talk about some of the aspects in regards to when we start thinking about capping max doses for pediatric patients, especially when they start weighing a little bit closer to adult patients. So hopefully this is a very beneficial presentation for you guys, even if you don't go into pediatrics or have a desire for pediatrics or have a rotation in pediatrics. Because I'm sure whatever aspect of pharmacy that you do practice in the future, you'll have some sort of exposure to this kind of theory in pharmacy. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So some objectives that I do have in this presentation are to not only recognize, but also be able to utilize available pediatric drug information resources, but then also apply very general pediatric principles to drug information scenarios. And so just a little bit about me to kind of make this presentation a little bit more memorable. So I did my undergraduate studies at the University of Georgia, and my major was biochemistry and molecular biology. And so I got my bachelor's of science in biochemistry and molecular biology, and I knew that I was very interested in the medical sciences. I wasn't quite sure where that would lead me, if it was going to be medical school or physician's assistant or pharmacy, but then ultimately my interest kind of led me to pharmacy as a career. And so I did my pharmacy school at the University of Georgia College of Pharmacy, where I did my first 2 years in Athens, and then I spent my remaining 2 years here in Augusta. And so I got a lot of exposure to Augusta University Medical Center, to the Children's Hospital of Georgia, as well as just UGA in general. And so I've been associated with UGA for 8 years of schooling, and then I decided to do my residency just because of my exposure during my 4th year. I knew that hospital pharmacy was where I really wanted to end up, and so I decided to do a residency, and they kept me on for 1 year. And so I did my first year residency here at Augusta University Medical Center in conjunction with the University of Georgia College of Pharmacy. And then for some reason they kept me on for a 2nd year for pediatrics. I knew that I was very interested. I've just always been passionate about caring for kids, even from an early age. And so that was just something that really made sense to me. Evidence of this, I do think that I am a child at heart. So one of my favorite things in this world, even from a young age, are Legos. I just think they're the most brilliant toys ever. And whenever I have kids one day, I'm going to just pour Legos on top of them. But so that's just a little bit about me. So I would be more than happy to touch base with any of you if you have questions about residency, if you have questions about pediatrics, anything that I can be of help with. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And so one of the first things that I had wanted to look at was pediatric resources, drug information resources. And so I'm not sure if you got to look at this because I sent this information so late. But one of the things I did want to address was what sort of pediatric drug information resources are available to you guys for drug information scenarios that might be for a pediatric patient. And so specifically for neonatal dosing, again, I'm not sure if you guys had an opportunity to look at this, but one of the references that I look at on a daily basis is Neofax. And so Neofax, you can actually reach this through Micromedics. And Neofax is it's an extremely succinct and reliable resource in regards to not only neonatal dosing, but pediatric dosing. And also, don't worry about taking too many notes because I have a kind of a key that I'll send out. I'll either post it on ELC. So if you guys just want to listen and type it down. So Neofax, and so I'm not sure if you guys are aware where Neofax is and or have an opportunity to explore. So I just figured that I would show you where this is at. And so on the screen, you can see that I pulled up Micromedics. And so NeoFacts and Pediatrics is actually just here up on the top bar. And so if you click this, it's, I guess, Google Chrome kind of makes you do this pop-up window. But then this brings you to your neonatal dosing or your NeoFacts. This is it also has an iPhone application, and I'm sure other sort of applications for other operating systems, but it has a really good iPhone app as well. It's a really good resource that I, again, use on a daily basis. So when we talk about one of our patient case scenarios, we'll actually refer back to that. So I think NeoFacts is a really good resource for neonatal dosing. In regards to child and adolescent dosing, so just Lexipop I think is a really reliable resource as well. So this is going to break up the dosing as well as the indications on specifically 2 indications, and it's going to provide the doses in either milligram per kilogram doses, and that's going to be stated the frequency is going to be stated, so every 6 hours, every 8 hours, or it's going to provide doses such as milligrams per kilogram per day, and then it's going to give you a recommended frequency in regards to how to dose that medication. And then I should have mentioned in NeoFacts, for a lot of the medications and a lot of the dosing, they provide really good charts for you. And so for certain antibiotics, it's dependent on the patient's age, whether that be the postmenstrual age. So it's actually the age when the baby was actually conceived in mom's tummy up until the point that they were born, and also taking into account the amount of time that they're alive after being born as well. So it breaks up these charts in postmenstrual age as well as postnatal age. And so postnatal age being the age after the baby's been born. So again, we'll address some of these dosing in this age situation in one of our patient case scenarios. And then for pediatric diagnostic information, the Harriet Lane textbook. And so I would be remiss if I also didn't mention some other honorable mentions for pediatric drug information scenarios. So the Pediatric Injectable Drugs book, so this is published by ASHP, also referred to as the Teddy Bear book. And so this provides a lot of really good information about injectable drugs. And so it's going to provide information in the form of monographs. And so these monographs have a lot of good information in regards to generic names and brand names, what diluents they're compatible with, what other additives are present in the actual medication. It has information in regards to maximum and minimum doses or how it can be administered. So if it can be administered by a push method, so if it's just a quick administration, it should be administered over a prolonged period of time. And so it's a very complete resource specifically for injectable drugs, and I think they have somewhere around 250 monographs with this the latest publication. And then also the Red Book. And so the Red Book is published by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and this is specifically for the report of the Committee on Infectious Diseases, so specifically for infectious diseases. And if you are not aware, there is not a whole lot of literature out there and a whole lot of data for a lot of indications and a lot of dosing for antibiotics and other medications in the pediatric population. That's just kind of the nature of the game for pediatrics. And so, especially in a kind of an arena where there's not a whole lot of information, this provides a lot of really good information in regards to certain indications for certain antibiotics for infectious diseases that you might see in pediatric populations, but then also dosing and which doses or which medication should be avoided, specifically in pediatrics. So these are some also really good resources for pediatric dosing as well. And so now we'll get into syringe sizes. And so again, this is kind of one of the areas that it might seem a little basic, but it's something that I deal with on a daily basis. So we'll just go ahead and get into it. So 1 milliliter syringe, both an oral as well as an IV syringe. So the increments are 0.1 milliliters, and this adds up to 1 milliliter. And the smaller increments are 0.02 milliliters. And so the smallest accurate measurable amount that we could do in a 1 milliliter syringe is 0.02 milliliters. And so again, it seems like a pretty insignificant change between, say, 0.24 milliliters and 0.26 milliliters. But again, we have patients who are on digoxin, and we have these high-risk medications that incremental of a change, especially for like a three-week-old baby. This can cause some serious adverse reactions, and that's something that we do want to avoid. So just something to take into consideration. 3 milliliter syringes, so again, oral as well as IV syringes. These are increments of 0.5 milliliters, with the smaller increments being 0.1 milliliters. So the smallest accurate amount that we can measure in a 3 milliliter syringe is 0.1 milliliters. The 5 milliliter and the 10 milliliter syringe, These are very similar in regards to the measurements. So the larger increments are of 1 milliliters each, and then the smallest amount measurable would be 0.2 milliliters. And so again, this is the same between our 5 milliliter syringe as well as our 10 milliliter syringe. And so we'll address some of these issues and what sort of recommendations that you guys would want to make specifically for measurements in these volumes that might not line up just right on these syringes. And we'll see what sort of ideas we can come up with. And so now we'll just go ahead and jump into some drug information scenarios, some patient case scenarios. So our first patient, she is a 7-month-old who weighs 6.8 kilograms. She is prescribed a medication dose of morphine 3.4 milligrams intravenously, given every 4 hours as needed for pain. And so if you've had a chance to look up some of these questions since they were posted, if you had the answer to these questions, or we can also go through these right now. So if you want to pull up micromedics, if you want to pull up or neofacts, but then also lexicon, we can take a look at this. But a relatively simple calculation to begin with. So what is the ordered milligram per kilogram dose for this patient? Any brave souls? Yes?
0.05 milligrams per kilogram.
So 0.05?
Yeah, so that was the recommended initial.
So, okay, so you're getting ahead of me. So this current dose that was prescribed for this patient comes out to be a 0.5 milligram per kilogram dose. And then you are absolutely correct. Is this dose appropriate for this patient? This is not appropriate for this patient because we know that the recommended dose per lexicon is 0.05 milligrams per kilogram per dose. And so a small decimal incremental change in this dose has already given this patient a tenfold overdose of this morphine. And so you can imagine the significant effects it can have on this patient, respiratory depression, possibly sending them into an ICU setting. So the correct dose would be 0.05 milligrams per kilogram per dose. And then knowing that we do have a concentration of morphine 2 milligrams per milliliter on the floor, how many milliliters with this appropriate dose would we want to administer? And so we know that the 0.05 milligram per kilogram dose multiplied by this patient's age would be 0.34 milligrams. And so again, this is kind of that comparative tenfold overdose that we were getting with that 3.4 milligrams. And so based off that concentration, what would the volume that would be measured out to? And distance, Hannah says, I would love some responses from you guys as well. And so this dose would ultimately come out to 0.17 milliliters. And so thinking about the 1 milliliter syringe, which is where we're going to get the most accurate measurement out of with this specific syringe, we know that the least amount measurable is 0.02 milliliters. So what would your recommendation be for this specific patient? What would you want to do?
.16 or 0.18 mils?
What's that?
Would you do like 0.16 or 0.18 mils?
Yep, that would be my exact recommendation. So I would recommend rounding to either 0.16 milliliters or 0.18 milliliters. And so the milligram per kilogram dose that we would get from those doses would be just under that 0.05 milligram per kilogram dose or just above that 0.05 milligram dose. And I would be personally okay with either of those dosages. So you can see where that complication and where that difficulty could be for the nurse measuring out that 0.17 milliliter. Realistically, they're probably only going to measure to the 0.16 or 0.18 milliliters to begin with. And so any questions so far about kind of that thought process behind it? So again, pretty basic math, pretty basic concepts, but something that's very important to think about. All right, so we'll go on to our next patient case. So we have a 4-year-old patient who weighs 17.7 kilograms who has gastroesophageal reflux disease, also referred to as GERD. The medical team would like to prescribe ranitidine or Zantac at a dose of 88 milligrams, given twice daily by mouth. And so based off of this dose and the patient's weight, what would the ordered milligram per kilogram dose be? So if we just do the dose of the 88 milligrams and divide that by 17.7 kilograms, this would be a dose of about 4.97 milligrams per kilogram per dose. So this patient's actually receiving just about 10 milligrams per kilogram per day of the ranitidine Zantac. And so from your research, what you can see on Lexicon or Micromedics or whatever drug information resource that you use, is this an appropriate dose? And if not, what would the milligram per kilogram dose be? Anybody find anything? So if you look under the indication for GERD in Lexicon for our pediatric patients, we do see that you can dose up to 10 milligrams per kilogram per day and have that divided twice daily for this specific indication. And so based off of the fact that we do know that there's a concentration of 15 milligram per milliliter of this product, what would the measured milliliter amount or volume amount be for this dose of 88 milligrams? Any takers? So based off of this fact, 88 milligrams with a concentration of 15 milligrams per milliliter, this would come out to a volume of 5.87 milliliters. And so realistically, especially for patients who are going home with parents who have to measure this dose out by themselves, making it a more realistic approach, so measuring out to the least amount measurable, probably most likely in a 10 milliliter syringe, which we do know the least measurable amount is 0.02. So what would you want to round this to? What would you feel comfortable rounding it to? Yeah, so I don't think there's an absolute right answer. Personally, I would recommend rounding to just 6 milliliters. This would give a dose of 90 milligrams. And so the milligram per kilogram dose would be 5.0 milligrams per kilogram. And I think this would be appropriate for this patient. And again, I'll send out a presentation with these answers as well. So that's a look at our 10 milliliter syringe and what we would realistically measure out to. All right, and so I think this is a fun one. So this is where we're going to want to pull out Micromedics and we're going to pull out Neofax. But we have a 4-day-old patient who we know is 38 weeks post-menstrual age. So again, the amount of time that the patient spent being conceived to being born and then 4 days afterwards, post-menstrual age of 38 weeks, who weighs 3.3 kilograms with sepsis. So they're presenting with signs and symptoms of infection, perhaps affecting the blood pressure or the respiratory rate or something like that. And so the medical team would like to prescribe ampicillin at a dose of 165 milligrams, IV given every 12 hours. And so based off of this, and the simple calculation, we know that this is going to be a 50 milligram per kilogram dose. And so this patient is ultimately going to get 100 milligrams per kilogram per day. And so do you think, based off of what you can see in Neofax, is this going to be an appropriate dose? I see some head nods. And so this would be an appropriate dose. And so 50 milligram per kilogram dose is very appropriate in a neonatal patient. And so what about the frequency? So we know that this is being dosed every 12 hours. And so based off of the age of the patient, so both the postmenstrual age as well as the postnatal age, do you believe that every 12 hours would be appropriate for this patient? And if not, what would you want to recommend? So again, I see some head nods. And so again, this would also be appropriate for this patient. And if there is any trouble, I'm sure you guys are more than capable of finding this, but if there is any trouble finding it, if we just pull up ampicillin and Neofax, and we scroll down to that chart that I was referring to earlier, we see that the postmenstrual age of the patient is 38 weeks, so it falls within that row of 37 to 44 weeks. And then we also know that the postnatal age is only 4 days. And so from there, we can see that it would be every 12 hours would be appropriate for this patient. So again, Neofax is just a really good resource that kind of lines it straight up for you, and it's a very reliable resource. Okay. And so knowing that ampicillin in our IV room is diluted to a concentration of 100 milligrams per milliliter. What is the measurable dose that you would get? And is this realistic, most likely going to be drawn up in the appropriate syringe? And if not, what would your recommendation be for this medication? Can I try to have somebody from Athens answer this for me? So we know that we have a 165 milligram dose at a concentration of 100 milligrams per milliliter, and this is going to come out to 1.65 milliliters. And so realistically, we're going to be drawing this up in a 3 milliliter syringe, which we do know our least amount measurable is going to be 0.1 milliliters. And so is there a certain recommendation that you would want to do for this specific patient?
1.6.
Say that one more time. I had a hard time hearing you.
1.6.
Sure, yeah. So 1.6 is reasonable. And thank you for your participation. I really appreciate it. So personally, I would run up to 1.7 mLs. This would give us a dose of 170 milligrams or 51.5 milligrams per kilogram. And so personally, just kind of in my own practice, I would rather give a little bit more antibiotic and a little bit less that you're not getting that recommended dose of 50 milligrams per kilogram per day. But I also don't think it's unreasonable to do the 1.6. That's just personally my practice. And so any question about this patient case scenario? Any questions about neofax, micromedics?
I have a question in Athens.
Sure.
So when you do the rounding, are you ever concerned that, or do you ever see that the rounding, which isn't many milliliters, do you ever see that it's significant change or difference in the patient?
Personally, so my experience, have I seen an actual change in the patient? When I have done the rounding, I personally have not. I have not seen this change, or I haven't seen any sort of effects. And again, I think it kind of comes down to thinking about what's reasonable for the nursing staff, thinking about what's reasonable for our pharmacists and our pharmacy technicians in regards to drawing that up. And I think it's safer to actually round to that dose than have them kind of eyeball that 0 point or round into that schematic.